Thank you, Jim, for inviting me to New York to speak about my CHEVAS experience and the European experience. My disclosures. There is an important disclaimer, as you know, and the use of NALIX is only on investigation in the US, and almost all what I'm talking about today is not allowed to be used in the United States. Endovascular treatment of juxta-renal AAAs is we have been talking about this during the morning. Manufactured devices are the gold standard, but temporal and manufacturing constraints exist. There is a significant turn-down rate, and there is a 7% earlier intervention, and in the global STAR there are 30% of intervention up to 3 years. A high mortality in seeding zone 6, and the limiting factor is that there are no off-the-shelf devices. CHEVAS has been used for urgent cases, and it is almost a near universal applicability. Early results are better than expected, but the main issue are the endoleaks due to the gutters. Well, what might be the potential benefits with CHEVAS? You know, with CHEVAS you need a minimum overlap of up to 2 centimeters. So the renals and the SMAs are sometimes very close, so you finish with 3 or 4 chimneys. You have an overstanding of 30%, the chimney is pushed against the wall, and the problem of the gutters. With CHEVAS, you don't have any radial force on the chimney grafts, no direct contact between stent graft and chimney graft, and the space between chimney, aortic wall, and stent graft is filled with polymer. So there should be less guttering and a potential reduction of type 1 endoleak. In the last 4 years, I have been performing myself 51 patients, 45 male, 6 female, for Juxta-Renal aneurysms, 40 patients, and 11 for secondary repair, EVA repair, CHEVAS repair, and 1 anastomic aneurysm after open surgery. Mean age 72.5 years. Mainly used left subclavian conduit, 2 transbrachial punctures for single chimney, zone 9 between the renal arteries, so in 25%, up to the SMA in almost 50%, and above the SMA in 24%. We treated 98 patients with chimney grafts, and we treated 117 target vessels. So all-cause mortality, I compared it to my patients treated with NALIX without CHEVAS. 30-day freedom from mortality was 97 with NALIX and 96 with CHEVAS. At 1 year, it was 91 for NALIX and 85 with CHEVAS. But there was the main difference was that 1 year there were only 30 patients. The mortality cause in both categories, so mainly cardiac, 2 in the NALIX, 3 in the CHEVAS group, 2 in the 2 cancer in both groups, 1 pulmonary and 1 trauma. So we might think that there are almost no aneurysm-related mortality, but there are 8 patients where we don't know exactly why they died. 3 chimney grafts occluded during follow-up, 1 successful secondary procedure after 1 year follow-up. 1 patient was untreated, he was dialyzed, and he died at day 265. And 1 unsuccessful procedure, the patient didn't have any increase of creatinine level, and he has been followed up for 3 years. I had 1 loss of a wire during a procedure. This is a patient with a ruptured type 1 endoleak, and I was kicked out the left renal artery by pushing up the NALIX stents in this highly angulated anatomy, but the patient survived. I had 1 type 1A endoleak during follow-up after 2 years. This patient was treated 2 years ago for this aneurysm. I wanted to go up to the right renal artery, a chimney only for the left, but there was a technical issue. The Endoleak stent here dropped down, and so there was no insufficient neck sealing. So it was the result a couple of months ago, and he was treated in last month with an extension and 3 chimneys. We didn't have any other type 1 or type 2 endoleak, and no significant migration larger than 5 millimeter. Only some minor complications. The most important is that several centers, 3 German centers, 2 Polish, 1 UK, and 1 from New Zealand, we made a retrospective analysis of our patients. 12 of my patients are included in this study. In total, we had 187 patients, 144 for primary intervention that will be analyzed. 10% were treated below the renal arteries or between the renal arteries. Almost 60% below the SMA, 24% between SMA and celiac axis, and 7% above celiac axis. 40% had 1 chimney graft, 35 2, 17% 3 chimney grafts, and 7 4 chimneys. In the most of the cases, it was a balloon expandable stent and 22 self-expandable stent. 4 patients died during 30 days, and so with a rate of 2.6%. There were 4 perioperative strokes, 3 of the posterior circulation with full recovery, and 1 fatal stroke. There were 2 significant renal complications that both resulted in death, 1 occlusion of the bilateral chimney grafts, and 1 trauma of the kidney. The freedom from mortality at 1 year was 94 for aneurysm-related mortality, and almost 90% for all-cause mortality. The 2 patients that died after the 30 days were due to an acute occlusion of the Endoleak and a chimney graft, and 1 patient with an endoleak. There were 3 early endoleaks and 4 late endoleaks. The type 1A endoleak were treated with coils and onyx. The type 1B with stent extension. There were no type 2 and no type 3 endoleaks. And the freedom from all endoleaks were 94.2% at 1 year. There were some secondary interventions, mainly on the chimney stents. 2 have to be thrombolized, others has to be extended. The target vessel patency was good after 1 year, 98%, 99% for the renal arteries, and 100% for SMA and celiac. So to conclude, regarding the early results of patency, endoleak rate, we achieved the proof of concept as a technique. It is promising, it fills a therapeutic gap. There are theoretical advantages in using polymer-based sealing. The early results are acceptable, but we have to know that in the future we have to access long-term durability, and for this study the results beyond 12 months are not robust enough to give a definitive conclusion. I have 3 examples how you can use Endoleaks with chimneys in complicated cases. Here, a lady with only 1 kidney and 2 renal arteries that could be treated with 2 chimneys very close, like a double barrel. Here, a patient who had a common trunk, SMA celiac trunk, with the left renal artery emerging at the level of this common trunk. So we finished with 1 chimney going and the Endoleaks pushed just at the bottom of the SMA. And here a case I did with Dr. McKinsey this year, a patient with double renal arteries on both sides, and he was treated with 2 chimneys, one stenting of one accessory renal and one ballooning of the 4th vessel. Thank you very much.